Most couples don't have a communication problem. They have a connection problem. And once you see the difference, it changes everything. You know, one of the most common things I hear as a therapist is this: we just can't communicate anymore. And I always find that interesting because at some point they could. They talked for hours. They were curious about each other. They felt understood, seen, and even accepted. Let me give an example. I'll sit with couples and ask, what was it like in the beginning? And they'll say things like, we couldn't stop talking, or we stayed up all night learning about each other, or everything felt easy. So then I wonder what changed. Why do relationships start to struggle? Let me start with something simple. First off, no one begins thinking, I can't wait for this to end in heartbreak, right? We just don't do that. We step into each relationship hoping for something lasting, something meaningful. Something like those couples you see sitting side by side after 40 or 50 years, still choosing each other. And in the beginning, it feels exactly like that. We're headed in the right direction. It feels like this could last. There's excitement. You're learning about them, they're learning about you. Everything feels new. Some might even say a little intoxicating. The conversations are easy. The adventures are fun. There's passion, energy. You want to be around each other. But then life happens. Work, kids, stress, responsibilities, illness, accidents, things. All over time. And then something shifts. Not all at once, but slowly. The relationships become familiar. And the things that once felt exciting start to feel ordinary. And it's not just the big things. It's the small things that begin to fade. The thoughtful gestures, the small acts of care, the curiosity, the excitement to be around each other. Those things weren't just nice extras. They were forms of communication. They were ways of saying, hey, I see you. I'm thinking about you. You matter to me. And as those things fade, something else takes their place. Shop talk, or such as schedules, logistics, problem solving. You're still talking, but the conversations start to feel different, more functional, less meaningful. So couples will say, we can't communicate, but they're really saying is, we don't feel close anymore. So when couples say we can't communicate, what I often hear underneath that is something deeper. It sounds more like, I don't feel safe enough to fully show up anymore. Because communication doesn't stand on its own. It sits on top of something deeper. It sits on top of attachment. And when we talk about attachment, what we're really talking about is safety. That sense, if I come to you, I'll be okay. Let me show you what I mean. I've sat with couples where one partner says something vulnerable like, I feel like I've been really overwhelmed lately. And the other responds with, well, yeah, we've both been busy. That's just life. Now, nothing terrible was said, but something important was missed. The first person wasn't looking for a solution. They were asking, do you see me? Do you care about what I'm feeling? And when that doesn't land, they start to pull back. Not because they don't care, but because it doesn't feel safe to keep opening up. And that's where communication starts to break down. Not at the level of words, but at the level of safety. So if we slow this down, there are 3 simple things that create safety in a relationship. And when these things are present, communication starts to feel natural again. First is availability. Are you there for me? This isn't just about being in the same room. It's about being present. For example, you know the difference when you're talking with someone and they're on their phone, half listening, saying, uh-huh. Well, you don't feel safe opening up anymore because you don't even know if they're listening. But when someone puts that phone down, looks at you, and gives you their full attention, something shifts. You feel like, okay, I might matter. That's availability. Responsiveness. Do you care when I reach out? This is where a lot of couples get stuck, because when someone shares something emotional, their natural instinct is to fix it. But most of the time, people don't want a solution. They want to feel understood. I've seen this moment play out so many times. One partner says, I had a really hard day, and the other says, well, did you try talking to your boss? Helpful? Maybe. Connecting? Not really. A responsive moment sounds more like, wow, that sounds really heavy. What happened? And suddenly the conversation opens up instead of shutting down. Third, engagement. Are you still interested in me? This one is subtle, but very powerful, because over time, curiosity fades. You stop asking questions, you stop noticing things, you assume you already know everything there is to know about your partner. But here's what I've seen. Couples don't drift apart because they stop loving each other. They drift apart because they stop being interested in each other. Engagement sounds like, hey, tell me more. What was that like for you? I didn't know that. Keep going. It's choosing to step back into your partner's world, even after years together. And when these three things are present, availability, responsiveness, and engagement, something powerful is created. Call it safety. And when people feel safe, they don't hold back as much. They don't filter every word. They don't brace for a negative reaction. They start to show up again. And when that happens, communication doesn't just improve, it starts to feel natural again. So the question becomes, how do we actually do this in everyday life? Because this isn't about big moments, it's about small ones. And that's where we're going to go next. So the question becomes, how do we actually rebuild connection? There's a simple idea from John Gottman that I think really explains this well. And once you see it, you'll start noticing it everywhere. He calls them bids for connection. And these are really small, and I mean really small, and often overlooked. Let me show you what I mean. You're sitting on the couch, scrolling on your phone, and your partner says, "Hey, guess what happened today?" Well, that was a bid. Now here's the moment that matters. Not the story, but what happens next. You've got choices. You can keep scrolling and say, "Yeah, what?" Or pause, set down the phone, look up and say, "Hey, what happened?" That's the difference. And here's the part most people miss. It's not about big conversations. It's about these tiny moments. Let me give you another one. Your partner walks in after a long day and just lets out a giant sigh, like a They don't say anything, but that's still a bid. Now you can ignore it, stay focused on what you're doing, or you could say, "Long day," or maybe even go up and give them a hug. And in that moment, you're telling them, "I see you." Now here's where this connects to what we talked about earlier. When you're first in love, this is really easy. You notice everything, you respond to everything. But as the relationship becomes familiar, these moments are easy to miss. Not because you don't care, but because life is full. And over time, those moments start to add up. And couples begin to feel, we're not as close as we used to be. So if we were to simplify this, there are three small shifts that make a big difference here. One, notice the moment. Be in this moment. Most bids are really subtle, and if you're not looking for them, you'll miss them. Two, turn toward, not away from each other. Connection is built in your response, even a small response that matters. Three, stay curious. Don't assume you know everything already about your partner. Keep asking, keep engaging, keep learning. And there's another piece that matters just as much. It's not just that you respond, it is how you respond. If you come in with frustration, people will shut down and be defensive. If you come in gently, people tend to open up because they feel seen. And listening here is everything. Not just listening to fix and not listening to argue, but listening to understand. I know this sounds simple, but it is actually one of the hardest things to do. Most people are listening while they're preparing a response. We're thinking about what we want to say next, how we're going to explain our side, or how we're going to prove our point. In doing so, we unknowingly create emotional distance from our partners. But real listening sounds more like this. Hey, help me understand what that felt like for you. And when you do that, something shifts. Curiosity opens up the conversation. The pressure drops and your partner starts to feel something deeper than just being heard. They feel understood. And when that happens, you're not just communicating, you're strengthening the relationship. Because in that moment, you're showing availability, responsiveness, and engagement. You're showing, I'm here with you. I care about what you are feeling. You matter to me. And that's what builds safety. And when people feel safe, they open up more. And that is how attachment grows. Because when people feel understood, they soften. And that's when connection starts to come back. Because every relationship hits hard. Moments such as misunderstandings, stress, seasons where you feel disconnected happen. It's important for couples to understand that they have a choice. They can pull away or they can learn how to repair. And if we slow this down, there's a pattern. I see this over and over again. It usually unfolds in 4 stages. 1, hard times really do build trust. I've sat with couples in some really difficult places, sitting across from each other, quiet, unsure what to say, even seething angry. And eventually, one of them says something like, "I really hurt, but I don't want to lose you." That moment really does matter. Because instead of walking away, they're choosing to lean in, not perfectly, not easily, but intentionally. And slowly, trust starts to rebuild. Second, trust starts to create safety. Over time, those moments stack up. They begin to realize we can go through something really hard and still find our way back to each other. And that creates something powerful: safety and security, predictability. Not because life got easier, but because they've experienced we're okay, even when things aren't okay. Third, safety creates freedom. And when people feel safe, they start to change. They relax a little more. They stop guarding every word. They start to show more of themselves again. I've seen couples who once struggled just to talk start laughing again. One couple I worked with used to sit in silence, barely making eye contact. Or when they spoke, there was a subtle jab at their partner, and everything felt tense. A few months later, they were sitting in the same room, teasing each other and laughing, interrupting each other mid-story because they were engaged and excited about their lives again. Nothing about their life got easier. They still had stress. They still had responsibilities. But something shifted. Between them, they felt safe. Safety created room for forgiveness. And then fourth, freedom brings joy. Fun and adventure. This is the part people don't expect. Strong relationships aren't just safe. They're actually really, really fun. They bring adventure into our lives. I've seen couples who have been through incredibly hard seasons. And on the other side, they don't just survive, they enjoy each other. Their relationship is stronger than ever. They have inside jokes no one else understands. They laugh at things that don't make sense to anyone else. They find moments of connection, even in the middle of busy, chaotic lives. And yeah, sometimes they still argue about what they want to eat for dinner. But that part doesn't go away. That doesn't matter. They have connection again. So when you look at those couples, the ones who have been together 40, 50, 60 years, the ones we all kind of admire, they're together not because their life was easy. In fact, they've been through everything: school, careers, illness, raising kids, disappointment, empty nesting, and probably a few seasons where they looked at each other and thought, what are we even doing? But they stayed, not because it was always easy, but because they learned how to go together through life. They learned how to communicate, care for each other, and come back after those hard moments. And somewhere along the way, they didn't just build a life, they built a relationship that made life better. Something steady, something meaningful, something even a little fun. And they were never doing it alone. And that's the beauty of relationships. Hope this was helpful. Until next time.